Welcome back to another episode of The Playbook. It has been 2 weeks since my last episode. God, that sounds like I'm repenting my sins. It's been 2 weeks since my last confession. Yeah, just kind of recording these as and when, if in the weekend there's no time for me to record, it is what it is. I think loosening the grip of some of the things that I have in my life is super important in this period. And just kind of getting used to that and going with the flow, so to speak, rather than getting kind of caught up in the structure. And taking some time to myself to relax a bit and loosen up structures that I have in my life. Like today in the run club, unbelievable, by the way. Really, really solid. Really solid turnout, over 30 people, which is becoming a regular, which is insanity. And it's funny just when people say, like, how did this start? Or, do you run this, or do you do the marketing? Oh, I laughed so much. Today someone said, are you doing the marketing for the page? And I was like, well, if you mean by marketing just putting up photos of today's run, then yeah, that's what I do. And like, and this is from somebody who does marketing. So like for me, if you told me, do you have marketing skills? I'd be like, no. But then from somebody who's in the field, they look at something that I'm doing and they're like, that's marketing. So it's just like, I think you only learn these skills by doing the thing and not learning about them. Like I could look up marketing for hours and not fully understand it or put it into practice or whatever. But apparently I've been doing it for the last year, which kind of makes sense when I break it down. But I've just been putting up the photos so other people can see it and potentially join the run club. And then obviously it's nice for people to see photos of themselves from the run. So that was funny for me, and the fact that she said, do I run it? And it's just been super organic and natural, and it came as a byproduct of the podcast. Like, that's what I find most insane, is that something that doesn't, things can lead almost like a domino effect from one thing to another. And whilst it doesn't feel like that, you can't really clearly see the output. Like I never would have thought of, I'm setting up a podcast to set up a run club kind of thing. That was never a plan. So like, it's important for me to remind myself that not getting fixated on the chain of events or how this leads to that or the outcomes of this and that, because without you realizing, one thing can turn into another and can snowball into a bigger thing. And there's no way in which that you could have predicted that. It's just by going with the flow and adapting based off what you think is needed and where you think you're going, and pulling the thread of your natural curiosity. Because me and Liam sat down over a year ago and was just like, I'd like to start meeting some people from the podcast and actually doing a run club. And then it just happened. It wasn't, let's set this up because, let's funnel into X, Y, and Z, which I've spoke about before. Anyways, yeah, after the run, just going for another run for myself for intervals for this triathlon that I'm training towards, and then going to the beach afterwards, which just spending a bit of time with the people from the run club was cool. And then going to another cafe afterwards with one of the guys to have another coffee and some pastries. It's just like I can relax a bit, like my Saturdays had become so structured to the sense that it took away from the time that was being spent at the weekends, and it took away from a lot of things, and being super racing to get things done and not integrating my life completely and having two separate things and not making enough sacrifices. And I think just loosening the grip a bit has made me realize that I can tend to take things too seriously, and that has a negative consequence, and not integrating things and racing to finish something so I can start something else and relax in the evening is just no way to live. But yeah, so decent 2 weeks. I think I've no real format of some of the things that I want to speak about today, because I have no real format of what I want to speak about today, no real topic. I think something that was front of mind for me this week was a lot of things front of mind for me, but something that I can speak about is hedonic adaptation. And this was something that was sent to from my mum just yesterday, and it was something that I was thinking about. I didn't even know it was called hedonic adaptation, but this is the idea of once you obtain a thing quickly, you get familiar with it, and as a result you get bored. So this is like building up really massive expectations to, like, I really want that car. Oh my God, I can't wait to have that car. You have the car, it's unbelievable for a week. And then after 2 weeks, you're like, okay, I'm bored. Let's move to the next thing. And quite easily, if you're fixated on getting the thing and then I will be happy. Once I have this, then I will be happy. You fall into this trap, because if we can agree that once you get a thing, quite quickly you start getting used to it and you want to look for the next thing, then there will always be the next thing. And this came into my mind when the owner of my company was nice enough to let me drive his Ferrari. So I'm driving down Shakeside. This is the second time I've drove it. So I'm driving down Shakeside Road with the roof down, because I can't really fit in it without the roof down, and going 120 kilometers an hour in a red Ferrari, speeding down Shakeside Road. And then I put up a story of it, like, because I was playing Kingfisher, who's an Irish artist, and I was like, I wonder if I'm the first person to play Kingfisher in a Ferrari. And then I saw many of my friends reaching out, being like, oh, how was it? That's so cool. Excuse me. I had so many people reach out and were like, how was it? That's so cool. And it's not to be the nonchalant guy or to be like, I'm so cool or whatever. It's like, I was just like, it was okay. Like, it was okay, it was fun, but I mean, it's all right. And for some people that didn't compute, because, like, it's so easy to put these things up on a pedestal of like, oh my God, this is a Ferrari. Oh my God, I really want this car. It's like, not having it makes it valuable and front of mind because it's so expensive. You see rich people driving around in a supercar, you're like, that is unbelievable. I want that so much. And you want it. You don't know entirely why you want it, but you just want it, so you go with it. Hedonic, it's like you're trying to please yourself. So then you work up this idea of a Ferrari being valuable, and this is something that you really want. You convince yourself that it's due to the horsepower and how fast it drives, when in fact it's going to be what other people will think of you. Because you understand that you look at the person who's driving the Ferrari, with his sunglasses, with the roof down, with the person in the passenger seat, and you're like, holy shit, that is so cool. I want that. And you want to be the guy in the Ferrari, so other people will look at you and be like, oh shit, I really want that. And I never really had that kind of burned desire, but I still was like, okay, I think the Lamborghini is cool or whatever. But then after driving it 2 times, I'm like, is that it? Is that it? And as a result, it's not like one of my burning desires to own a Ferrari in the future. So as a result, that has less of a grip on me in terms of a material desire or an outcome. So like in my head is like a cheat code to removing your want for a material desire to obtain it but not actually own it. So like I drove it twice, and now I'm like, okay, that's quite sick. It was cool enough, but it is what it is. And like, first of all, 2 years ago, I would not have thought I would have been driving down Shakeside Road in a Ferrari. And second of all, I'm like, maybe Dubai is like numbed me to the idea of these big flashy things where people think once you come here that you're chasing the material, but it's like when you're surrounded by it the whole time, when it's just so obvious and in your face, then you slowly start to lose your want for it. Like if I was back in Ireland and I was driving around Sligo in a Ferrari, there would be photos, there would be everything, there would be everybody looking. But you're driving a Ferrari through the marina like I was, and no one's really turning their head. So it's kind of like it defeats the purpose for why some people would want to obtain the thing. So is Dubai a little cheat code for that? Potentially. So I didn't really, it was cool and all, like, but I was more terrified driving it that I was going to nick it off a curb like I did with the Cybertruck. Same goes for that. It's like, I mean, I drove it. It is what it is. Like, maybe I'm just not really my thing. Like, same thing with the watches and the Rolex. Oh, what have I become? I was driving down Shakeside Road with a Ferrari with a Rolex. Like, who have I become? And I'm the very person pronouncing it and being like, it's not that deep. When other people can put it on a pedestal. Anyways, I think that was kind of a big thought for the weekend. My mum sent it to me asking me my opinion, and I actually need to send her a voice note back because I just opened it and watched the video that she had sent me. So it'll be interesting to hear her perspective, and I'm going to share some of my insights on that. But maybe not the material desire that I can get caught up in that. I think I can get caught up in the hedonic adaptation when it comes to some of the other things in my life. It's like, okay, when I have achieved this, when I'm in this position, when I've worked this hard, then I will be happy. So potentially that's what she was alluding to, probably my crippling relationship with work. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just taking it personal. But I think that for me, that's where it raises its head. It's like, then I will be happy. Once I achieve this, then I will be happy. Rather than once I get this, if that makes sense. I want to achieve, not get. And I think that's a trap that I can fall into and take me away from the present moment and the here and now. Speaking of the present moment and the here and now, something that has really come into light within the last 2 weeks has been, I think, the impact of how you feel and its consequences and how well you perform within the real estate sphere. So 2 weeks ago, we had a training with somebody who was all about mental performance. And for me, this is the shit. Like, that's so me. Like, that's so interesting to me. And it gave me a point of clarity because I was like, I mean, I've strayed so far away from psychology and denied it as something that I've been passionate about. But here we go again, the most engaged I've been in real estate training in the last 2 years. And it has to do with the psychology of human behavior and mental performance. This guy took us through some super interesting exercise, and this was for the management of the real estate company that I work for. And he was talking about how this can be implemented company-wide. It was a deep 90 minutes and full of content. But I think the most interesting things that I extrapolated out of that were the fact that a lot of the things that he was talking about were things in which that I had spoken about and I had done, but just fell out of touch with. And it's things that I used to do and I still do, but I didn't really correlate it when it came to my performance. And what do I mean by this? What he spoke about is something that Dan Carter and the All Blacks have spoke about. It's the fact that the All Blacks in their prime had psychiatrists working with the team before it was trendy. They were the first professional rugby team to really start delving into the depths of mental performance and how that can unlock results in the physical domain. And the trainer was telling these stories about the All Blacks and was talking about going from red to blue. And somebody who's in red or redhead is going to be somebody who is stuck, who is stressed. And how this shows up for me is anxious. It is fast breath. It is reactive. It is confused, distracted. It is annoyed, frustrated. It's doubting where I am and where I'm going. It's fixating on the future and getting caught up with the outcome. It is being reactive and lashing out and being quite negative to myself. And this is a negative place to be, and this negatively impacts your performance, and this causes you to be stuck in whatever domain that you're in or whatever field that you're in or whatever task that you're upon. So in work, this causes me to freeze up. This causes me to negatively affect my performance, but also negatively affect my mental well-being. And what he talks about is the opposite of red is blue. The opposite of redhead is bluehead. And blue head essentially is, yes, this person is under pressure in blue, but they're going with the flow. They are performing under the pressure. They are in the optimal performance. They are relaxed. They are shoulders back. They are focused on their breath. They are in deep flow work. They are undistracted. They are in the present. They are focused on the task, and they are this somewhat growth mindset. They're optimistic, and they're trying to squeeze the most out of the opportunity in front of them. This person is taking accountability for their actions. This is the internal locus of control rather than external, which is kind of red. So blue is where you want to be. Blue is peak performance. This is when you're deep in flow with a task. This is when you're in that deep work. This is when you are, what looks and feels like play to you looks like work to others. And you feel like that you are, even though you're deep in work and you're deep under stress and strain and pressure, that it is positive. It's moving you forward. It's growth. It's expanding. It's like when you are on top of your game in anything. It's like when you're feeling fresh on a run. It's like when you are, blasting through a full hour of deep focus work. And he talked about how to go from red to blue. And this is what was super interesting to me. He talked about different techniques, grounding, putting your feet on the ground and connecting where your feet are, connecting with your skin, connecting with your senses, your what you're feeling. Can you feel the chair beneath you? Can you feel the clothes on your back? Can you feel the sleeve on your arm? Can you feel your shoes under your feet? What does that feel like? And getting into the present moment and out of your head and into your body. And he talked about breath work, and he talked about meditation, and he talked about having a trigger that reminds you to go from red to blue. When you notice yourself getting frustrated, what you do in order to go from one to the other. The most important thing is acknowledging it. So for some professional athletes like Dan Carter, this was like slapping his leg in a certain place, just poking it in a certain place. So that if he's taking a massive kick in a rugby game, that if he's looking around and noticing, oh shit, there's 80,000 people here. What if I miss this kick? What if I miss, this one just like the last three? And noticing that he's in his head, then he squeezes a certain part of his leg to give him another reframe of getting from red to blue. And for the guy who is doing the training, he has a certain thing on his wrist that he feels like a wristband, and this gets him to red to blue. And for me, I noticed that I even had it, because what I have is when I'm in the car and I'm feeling that I'm not in the present moment and I'm driving, then I just rub the inside of the steering wheel, just where the thread is, just where on the steering wheel, on the underside of the steering wheel, there's a little thread. And I rub there if I'm feeling stressed. And I was explaining this whole thing the next day after the training in the voice note. And just as it was happening, someone cut me off on Sakim. And on the voice note, I was like, fuck. I was just shouting. I was just like cursing. I was just like, this guy, I can't believe he just cut me off. And I just realized what was happening. And I was like, I can't, this is a test. And I just got back into the present moment. I just rubbed the inside of my steering wheel and I brought myself back into the present moment. And I went from almost going down the path of a negative red mindset into the blue mindset. And it's so fucking interesting for me, because it's what I spoke about so many different times. It's what I've practiced. It's like the first time I started realizing that I noticed I was getting frustrated at somebody in traffic driving slowly in front of me back 4 years ago when I was in Ireland, and noticing that I noticed it was like the most important part. It's like noticing when you get frustrated, because there's a lot of people out there that are literally prisoners of their emotions. They are reactive. They have zero ability to control their emotions because the external environment influences how they feel. So the first and most important thing is obviously to acknowledge it, but that I realized that I had been doing this for so long, and it's something that I take into my life and something that I practice. And I'm like, well, how much of a significant impact has this had on my performance when it comes to real estate or training for a marathon or a triathlon? It's like super interesting to me. It's like this peak performance mindset, so to speak. And what else was interesting was he spoke about having 3 different buckets of like, if something happens, differentiating it through these 3 different things. Not in my control, I can influence, or in my control. And it's separating the things in your life that are not in your control, in your control, and things that you can influence. It's like the things I cannot control is how other people perceive me, other people's emotions, other people's how they react to a given situation, the weather, the traffic, if a deal falls through, if I get injured, if there's so many different things. And then things that are in my control is my perception to the events, my emotions, my belief. And when he started speaking about the things that are in my control, it made me start thinking of Damien Brown. If anybody listening to this doesn't know Damien Brown is somebody who was an ex-professional rugby player, and he was the first, I'm not sure if I have this correct, but he was the first person to solo row from New York to Galway. It was the longest single row or something like that. And when he was on this expedition, like, he's huge in terms of challenging the physical body so you unlock the mental performance. When he was doing this, the things that he said that you can focus on are, and the only controllables is there's 4. The 4 controllables is what he talks about. And the 4 controllables, according to Damien Brown, is your breath, your self-talk, your body posture / technique, and your effort. So that's your breath. Oh, I forgot it. So that's your breath, your self-talk, your body posture / technique, and your effort. Those are the 4 controllables. By focusing on the 4 controllables in a situation that feels like it's outside of your control, you can get back into the present moment and you can get a grip of the things that are in your control and move forward. So this is if things are going upside down, if a deal has fallen through, if you are at the tail end of a really difficult run or a really difficult cycle, focusing on the things that are controllable. And the reason I say cycle is because the following day when we spoke about this, I was having a tough cycle. Oh my God. My legs were burning. My quads were screaming. My head was telling me to slow down, to stop pushing yourself, that you will injure yourself, that this is negative, that maybe, it's on the wrong gear. Why is this so difficult? Maybe now is time to quit. And then what I did was I focused on the 4 controllables. I focused on my breath. I focused on my self-talk, so the things I was saying in my head. I was focused on my effort, and I focused on my technique and my body posture. And what I got to realize that this pain isn't negative. The pain is just a feeling. The pain is a byproduct of me growing. And the very fact that I'm feeling this pain in my quads, in my legs, the burning of it, is a sign that I'm moving in the right direction. That just because something hurts doesn't mean that I have to shy away from it. And just because something hurts doesn't mean that it's a negative. And I took that and realized that there's other aspects of my life that just because something hurts doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. Just because something hurts, it doesn't mean that you should quit or you should reverse, or that if there's pain there, it doesn't mean that now is time to step away. If there's pain there, it doesn't mean that you're not going in the right direction. It's a byproduct. It's a sign that you're going in the right direction. So if you're facing adversity, if you're facing doubt, if you're facing, constant negative like feelings about something that might be going on in terms of like casting doubt into the world, if you're going in the right direction, let's say in a commission only role like real estate, that those feelings are not negative. They just are. They're just a feeling. They're just a byproduct of you reaching into the unknown and being in an uncomfortable position. But that does not mean that it is negative. That does not mean that now is time to back out of it. It actually means that you're going in the right direction. And those are the points that you'll find out the most about yourself. Like when it hurts, when it genuinely hurts, in the physical, in the mental, in the emotional. By breaking down a muscle, that's when you get to rebuild it. That goes for physical and that goes for your mental state as well. So that was a super interesting training for me. And I took lessons from that into real estate. I took it into my personal life and I took it into my physical performance side. And it's something that I'm really going to try and start implementing when it comes to the brokers, because I'm almost afraid sometimes that it can be a bit voodoo, but fuck that. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. But I'm going to try and implement it more with the brokers on my team, because if it gives an edge to people in the physical space, the physical performance, then in a job such as real estate that's super performance based, surely it will unlock the same things. Like 100% it's a performance-based role, because if we agree that how we feel impacts how well we do, how much we can work, how hard we can work, how much we can focus, and that has a clear correlation with how much money that we make. So therefore, it's important to put an emphasis on how we feel mentally, physically, emotionally. And that is what truly interests me from myself and helping others unlock that. It's just, how do you help others unlock that? I suppose that's the next thing for me to do when it comes to this training, is helping others find that. That was super interesting for me. If anybody takes anything from that, like, you can easily take that into your own life. If you're listening to this, you're in real estate. If you're listening to this and you're not in real estate, it's just like, when in your life are you a prisoner to your emotions? When in your life are you super reactive? When in your life, and what are the signs of you being in that redhead? What does that look like? What's that version of you like? But also, what's the version of you that's blue? What's the blue head version of yourself? When are you loose? When are you opened up? And using some of the tools to go from red to blue are super important, and you being able to dictate how you feel. Once you unlock that, you realize that you've got full control of, you've got the ability to fully control how you feel in every moment. If something bad happens, it's your perception to it. Now, repping that out and getting used to that and training your mind, it takes time, it takes repetition, it takes continual reinforcement consistently for a long period of time. And that's the hard part. But you can decide, you can realize that you are in control of that. And that's so empowering to me. That is so empowering to me, because if I unlock my mind, if I have the ability to control how I feel, then I can dictate and control my performance. And I can dictate and control how much money I make. And this all boils back to the whole thing that I used to think that it wasn't the controllable, that, it was up to the world to decide if I was going to be successful or not, just based off the kind of job that I'm in, doctor, lawyer, all that classic stuff. And so that was interesting for me. That was really, really interesting to me. And you realize the things in which that you're interested in, and how many times you tell the story to some other people. And I told that story a few times. So that was another episode 60 something, not sure. I hope you took something from that. If you did, let me know. If you want to discuss it further, let me know. Come to the run if you haven't been there. If you haven't been in a while, come back. But yeah, thank you to anybody who's listened this far, and I'll see you in the next one.